Hi Year 8, Miss Theka here again. So today we are carrying on with our Jack the Ripper topic, but we are starting to bring it to an end now, and we're going to be thinking about the impact of the Ripper murders and what change came as a result of the Ripper murders. So today we're thinking about, can something good come from something bad? So you need a pen and paper as usual. Title, it's quite a long one so you can shorten it if you want to. Evil Psycho or Social Reformer, did anything good come from the Ripper murders? So the first thing that we're going to do, normally when we do this in school, it brings about quite a lot of debate, and it's something that we normally do in teams, but we can't obviously do that right now. So I want you to just try and do this anyway, although it will be quite hard. There are 6 pictures here, all showing something different. There is something bad involved in every single one of these pictures, but there is also something good that comes from it as a result. What I want you to do is you can number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, because obviously you've not got the picture to write around now. I want you to try and give me what is the bad thing about this situation, but what good has also come from it. So to give you a little bit of a head start, as an example, this one here, the British weather, it shows winter, rain, 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 summer, also rain. The British weather is known as an absolute joke, the fact that we don't ever really get much of a summer, although we've had a bit of sun recently. So what's bad about British weather? Well, we get quite a lot of rain, but what is also good about British weather? Well, the fact that we do get quite a lot of rain means that our soil is very fertile. We're able to grow a lot of crops here, and farmers are able to grow quite a lot of things that they aren't able to grow in countries that don't get as much rain as we do. So you can see how from one angle it's bad, but from another angle it's good. Does that make sense? So go through the other 5 that we haven't done and see if you can explain there's something bad, but also there's something good that might come of it. This is going to be quite hard, so I just want you to give it a go, okay? So pause me now, try to do it yourself, and then we'll go through the answers. Okay, so I'm going to go through these with you here. First one, this is a newspaper that says Hitler dead. So the bad thing here obviously is World War II. War causes so much death and destruction, but war can sometimes result in something good. So war can remove an evil person from power, which ultimately creates more good, and that is what World War II did. World War II itself was catastrophic and caused so many deaths, but perhaps had World War II not have happened, Hitler would have ruled for much longer than he did, and he would have continued to cause the death and the unhappiness. So something good from something bad. Next one. Very, very few people get this, although there is sometimes some students who recognise them. These were 2 little girls that lived down south in Soho, and they were murdered. They were kidnapped by someone that they knew, someone who worked in their school. He was a caretaker. He kidnapped them and he killed them, and it was all over the news for such a long time because it was considered as being such an awful crime. In fact, it's still on the telly now. There was a documentary on the telly literally the other day about it. So that is obviously awful. It's horrendous. But from that something bad came something good. After their murder, the law was completely changed to make sure that we're able to protect children even more. So their murderer had been able to get a job in the school even though he had a history of violence and he had been in prison before. Whereas now we have things called DBS checks that check everybody that works in school, from cleaners, caretakers, dinner ladies, teachers, TAs, the office staff. They all have to have a check to make sure that they are safe to work with young people and vulnerable people. So something bad and something good that came from it. Big changes within the law after that. Something bad, something good. Mouldy bread is bad, you can't eat it. But something good. Using certain types of mould, you can create medicines, particularly penicillin, which is used to treat infection. Next one. Bad weather, we've already talked about that one. This one here, hopefully you've managed to get this one. Childbirth is said to be one of the most painful experiences anyone can go through. However, in order to have a child, to have that something good, to have a baby, you have to go through the bad, you've got to go through the pain. So even though it's painful, you get a child out of it. And last one, community service. In order to be given community service, you will have broken the law. So that is something bad. Community service is where people are, instead of being sent to prison, they might maybe be asked to clean the streets, wash graffiti off walls, which is what this person is doing here, litter pick, maybe work for free in a certain area. So even though it's bad that that person will have broken the law, it can also be good because they have to put something good back into the community that they've wronged as well. So something bad from something good. Okay, so continuing with the can something good come from something bad theme, after the Ripper murders there were many changes in the East End of London. Normally I would give you a sheet you're going to read through and then you would normally write next to it, but obviously we can't do that, so instead I'm going to put the information up on the screen for you and then you're going to explain it. So you're going to read through this information and you're going to explain how this change improved the East End of London. So here are the first two here. So you've got 5 in total, these 2 and then those 5. And then you are going to, from each section, write a couple of bullet points as to how life improved as a result of the changes made after the Ripper murders. So, first one, Jack the Ripper almost had an immediate impact on London by exposing the existence of poverty-stricken lower classes. Prior to the murders, the wealthier classes were aware of social unrest in the East End. Riots and widespread demonstrations by the poorer classes had now started to spill out across London. The playwright George Barnard Shaw pointed out that the gruesome murders succeeded where social reformers had failed. They'd managed to attract widespread attention to the area's terrible conditions. So write number 1 in your margin, and then next to that try to get a couple of bullet points down. What good has come of this? Well, as it says here, a lot of the wealthier classes before were aware of poverty, but they often ignored it. Whereas now, after the Ripper murders, it had managed to attract widespread attention as to just how awful it was to live in some of these terrible conditions. So that would be the first couple of bullet points I'd get. Number 2. Those who found the bodies of the victim often went looking for a police officer on the beat, and by that I mean a man walking completely unarmed in what is thought to be one of the most dangerous areas in the whole of London. If you went looking for a police officer, you would often struggle to find one. After the murders, Parliament granted additional funding to place more police officers patrolling the streets of Whitechapel and in other areas of the East End. After the murders, an armed officer could often be found, usually within a few minutes after a crime had been committed. So again, write number 2 in your margin, and then a couple of bullet points. What has improved now after the Ripper murders? Pause me if I've gone through that a little bit too quickly, and I'm going to skip on to the next couple. Next 3. Through the 1880s and 1890s, the English government changed several laws so that social conditions would improve for the population. There was a fight for more open spaces to avoid constant overcrowding. One of the main campaigners became the founders for the National Trust. So if you've ever been anywhere that is a place protected by the National Trust, so that might be a park, it might be a woodland, a green space, that was almost kind of introduced because of the changes we saw from the Ripper murders. Attitudes towards working conditions were also challenged. Reformers tried to ease the hours for children in factories. There was also dock strikes where it was reported that workers were getting very little amounts of money. They would come to work without a crumb of food in their stomachs. The British government granted a pay rise to these men and others working in factories. So again, number 3, a couple of bullet points. What good has come from this situation? Number 4. In reality, the places where the murders occurred tended to be completely unlit, and the area as a whole suffered from a distinct lack of lighting. This was one of the main reasons why Jack was able to get away with his crimes. However, after the murders, many of these streets received gas lighting. This allowed for people who worked late hours to walk home in relative brightness. There was also patrol schemes and people could be walked home. It was mostly offered to women if they felt particularly unsafe at night. Same again. Number 4, a couple of bullet points, what's improved. Number 5, a tougher stance on brothels and prostitution. A brothel is a house or a building where prostitutes would stay, and then the men would come and visit the brothel to pay the prostitutes. If a particular organisation suspected that a house was being used as a brothel, now they could report their suspicions to local parish council, who would instruct the police to watch the premise to keep them under surveillance in order to gather necessary evidence against them to prosecute the owners. Women were encouraged to keep off the streets late at night. Although it was really difficult to police, for the first time prostitution was actually being dealt with instead of being ignored by police. So same again, number 5, a couple of bullet points, what good has come from this bad situation? And pause me again if I've gone through that a little bit too quickly. So last thing, explain one positive change as a result of the Jack the Ripper murders. Out of the 5 things that we've looked at just then, what do you think was the most positive change? Do you think it was the introduction of street lighting, the cracking down on prostitution and brothels? Do you think it was improving working conditions? Do you think it was improving the standards of living conditions, making areas in the East End of London less crowded? Do you think it was the fact there was more police officers? So pick one and explain it for me, please. And that is me done for today. So thank you for tuning in, and I will speak to you again soon.